Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video of Career Talks. And if you remember, a couple of years back, I posted a video on how to make career in embedded system. But there are a lot of questions related to hardware engineering, which I think I personally should not be answering because I mostly have experience in embedded software part. So I thought I should bring one of my very good friend Anush Deshpande and talk about his career trajectory, his career journey. He is currently working as an hardware engineer at Balena, and over the period of many years in his career, he has wear multiple hats as an open source contributor to hardware organizations, to attending meetups, conferences, maker fairs around the world, launching and successfully delivering his own crowdfunding campaign, making art installations for galleries and malls and whatnot. So let's hear it from Anuj and his career path as being a hardware engineer. But as always, it's gonna be a big video because Anuj has so much to share, and I really want you to get value out of it. So hear it out patiently and use this as a podcast. Just wear your headphone, and I am pretty sure that you're gonna learn a lot from this video. So without further ado, let's just start. Awesome, hey Anuj, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having
So
me.
yeah, like since the very first time I had this sort of doing a career talk series, I have you in mind, like the one guy I definitely wanted to bring on this particular series.
Yeah,
So you must know that I have done this how to make career in a system, and I got a lot of questions about hardware, about crowdfunding, manufacturing,
right.
and the only name popped up in my mind is Anuj Deshpande, who have been doing a lot of software stuff, whether it's open source, whether it's for your own different organizations you have been working in, and you have been doing talks in conferences and crowdfunding, and you recently organized a small conference, which I think is the best lockdown conference I've ever attended, ever participated in. So I'm so stoked to have you, and we'll be talking a lot about what you have been doing lately and how you made a career for yourself in the embedded domain. So
Right.
quickly, would you like to give a small introduction for people listening, like
Right. Right.
what
Right.
you do currently and where have you been
Right.
coming from
Yeah. Yeah.
since the college university days?
Yeah. So right now I work as a hardware engineer for a company called Balena. So Balena, most people are familiar with Balena for the software that they make for flashing devices. So it's called Balena Etcher. But Balena also does a fleet management software. I'm part of their hardware team. We have two hardware projects there, and I work on them. So yeah, so that's my day job. That's something that I've been doing for almost the last 2 years. Before that, I worked for semiconductor companies for 4 years. So I worked for Marvel Semiconductors for 2 years and Espressif Semiconductor for another two. And before that, I worked for a startup for 1 year. So yeah, so if you add all of that, I'm 29 years old. I graduated from my engineering college in 2014. Uh,
Hmm. Interesting.
so yeah, so my degree is actually in computer engineering, but I've
Yep.
been doing a lot of hardware stuff. I still actually do computer engineering every day, but computer engineering has moved away so much towards IT
Definitely. Yeah.
that people forget that hardware is actually part of
So true. We'll definitely be touching more upon that. But
yeah.
I think that's the way we connected. If I
Yeah.
remember, I was doing some ESP stuff, and back that time you were working for Expressive,
Yeah.
and I posted on
Yeah.
Instagram, and I think couple of years later we met for the first time in Singapore
At the
for
FOSS
the
Asia
FOSS
conference.
Asia
Yeah.
Summit,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I remember your talks. You were giving talks on voice assistants on ESP32,
Yeah, and the other
and
one was, I think, ESP Jumpstart. Now
oh
it's
yeah,
called
yeah,
ESP Jumpstart. I think the
yep.
name was different then, but
Oh yeah, we met a lot of amazing people there. I remember meeting
yeah,
Mitch,
Bunny
Bunny,
was there.
Sayani was there.
Yeah,
A lot of amazing people, and we had a great discussion for the bold port tweet, which you were
yeah, yeah,
showcasing
yeah,
during the
yeah,
presentation, the
yeah,
prototyping versus the production one. That
yeah.
was
That
one
that
of
was the
the
easiest slide I've ever done because
yeah, that was one hell
uh,
of a conference, and
yeah,
yeah,
that was a
we
good
connect.
conference.
Yep, a lot of amazing people.
Yeah,
So yeah, you mentioned you have been coming from a computer science background, but computer science has been shifting to a lot to the IT domain, and
right,
Docker, Kubernetes, and infrastructure part is there, and at the same time, AI and ML is there.
right,
But at the end of the day, everything is going to be running on a hardware. It
right,
could be a 128 core CPUs as a server sitting on the cloud. It can be a small 32-bit microcontroller sitting on our desk.
right.
When did you actually realize that you want to play around hardware, you want to have breadboards and jumper wires, and actually writing the
Yeah.
code that goes inside these semiconductor chips?
Uh, so one of the things that I kind of realized early in my college life. So okay, so the way that my university work was, we didn't really have time for internships.
Hmm.
So internships didn't happen until your last year, and that was a little too slow for me. So I actually started doing internships in my second year, and that's how I got introduced to a bunch of different domains, because
Hmm.
that doesn't happen that easily when you're in college if you follow the official syllabus and stuff. So
Very true.
internships are a great way. So I did a couple of internships. One was in optical character recognition and stuff like that. It was interesting, but it wasn't my cup of tea. There was another which was actually writing software and building a hardware prototype. So the company had a patent, and when you have a patent pending, you have to actually build the thing and show that it works.
Yep.
So I was part of that process. Like they had an idea of how it should work, and they actually needed to build something. And then I joined as an intern, and I was with them for a couple of months. And I think that's when I first came into actually building stuff with my hands, and then writing code for it. And I think after that, all the internships or everything that I've picked have all been related to hardware. So after that, I worked at Beagleboard Foundation for my Google Summer of Code, and so on and so on.
So you,
So
you didn't explicitly pick hardware-based internship, but you got it and you find your interest in
yeah,
there.
yeah. So
Ah,
you won't get your like you won't figure it out in your first internship. So that's why you have to have, like, you want to do at least three or four. So
very
that's
true.
why, yeah. So my problem was, if I followed the official college guidelines, I would be able to do one during my 4 years, which was too few for me because I didn't know. I honestly felt I liked everything, which is to some extent true, but then you have to narrow it down.
Very true.
That's why it was important for me to do a bunch of internships and a bunch of projects. And I mean, sometimes it's not possible to do internships. Then you just go to a professor and ask them, "Do you have any work?" Which is
That's
also
true.
what I did. Uh,
Hmm.
so that also worked out pretty well for me, actually,
Hmm. Interesting.
because this wasn't very common in my college, but many a times professors do have projects of their own that are ongoing.
Yeah.
They're usually industry related, or they're working on their PhD or something like that. So if you just go and ask, most of the time it works, actually,
That's a very good
because
advice.
yeah, just asking is actually the biggest advice I can give. Is like, just ask for what you want.
That's right.
Many a times people are not sure what they need to ask, so what you need to think about is what you want to ask, which is kind of like the hard part.
Hmm.
But
Very true.
once you like ask for something concrete, people usually are pretty welcoming.
Very true. So, like, what were
Yeah,
your projects in the initial days? I'm very intrigued. So, people usually have this robotics lab sort of in every university in
yeah,
India, and then they are doing a lot of line followers and things
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah. So my final year project was actually in cloud robotics. So
Hmm.
what we had was, we had an OpenStack server. OpenStack is similar to AWS, but it's
Yeah.
open source and you can host it on your laptop. So we had an OpenStack server, and then we had a small robot that we made with some servo motors and a BeagleBone back. And what we were trying to do is, we were trying to take data from a webcam and upload it to OpenStack, do some image processing on it, and then send that back to the rover so that it can move. It kind of worked, uh, but I mean, what took us months then, I could probably do now in weeks. We were pretty slow
Hmm.
at it, and we learned a lot around the project. So that was good. But yeah, I mean, I think it was a great college project. Because if you think
Yeah.
about it, that's what I've been doing after that. I've been
Very,
working
very true.
towards cloud robotics. Not exactly cloud robotics, but like small devices talking to the cloud, getting something
Hmm.
done, getting information back. Like, that's
The
what I've
hot
been doing,
buzzword
actually.
of our time, IoT.
Yeah, yeah.
So later, I think after university days, you joined Marvel Semiconductor.
No,
So
so
you,
the before that, I spent. So the other thing that I did in college was, I did not appear for the placements,
hmm,
because I was not happy with the kind of companies that were coming. They were good companies, right? They were mostly from IT,
not for you, but
uh, but those were not the kind of companies that I wanted to work for. So I was kind of like a spoiled brat. Like I said, I'm not going to appear. And like, yeah, so either you give your GRE and go abroad,
yeah.
which is something that I seriously considered at one point, or you appear for placements. And I didn't do any of those. So what
Hmm,
happened was, there was a local meetup that I used to frequent, and those guys are pretty cool. They were working in the software industry, but they were tinkering with hardware on the side, and that drew my attention because I met them at a conference.
hmm.
Uh, So I met them at a conference, and then I started hanging out at Meetup. And then when they realized that I'm actually going to graduate, they said, "We want to come work here," basically. And that's how I got my first job. Like I actually didn't even interview for it.
Takeaway
Uh,
points: do go to meetups.
yeah, do go to meetups, figure out what you like, and don't just go there and show your face. Actually participate.
Yeah.
But that's how you make connections. So yeah, I actually didn't even have to interview because I was already working with those guys. So there was no formal interview or anything. There was just a discussion about salary, and that's about it. And that was actually the smallest salary discussion that I've ever been a part of because I had no standards. Like it was a good salary. I'm not complaining, but I really wanted to work with those guys, and money wasn't like, even if they paid half of what they paid me, I would have still worked for them.
Because the work is good.
Yeah, because the work was really good. So yeah, those are the kind of things that you should initially do. Uh, Money shouldn't be one of the things because like I've seen some of my juniors be really passionate about robotics, but then they started working for a bank, and then they would do Coursera courses in autonomous driving and stuff like that, but then still wake up and go to work in the bank,
Yeah,
which
I can
was
relate.
yeah. So uh, yeah, this is a privilege because my family situation is pretty simple, and I didn't have loans or such. So that could be a factor. But yeah, so I worked there for 1 year. I worked there for like exactly 1 year. Uh, and that's where we did a crowdfunding campaign. It was one of the first few campaigns that happened out of India. And then I joined Marvel after I
Okay.
quit that.
And you were doing a
Actually,
lot of Marvel IoT open source stack, which I figured you were doing. So mostly
yeah,
software part, but end of the day, someone is going to be running it on the hardware. So you will be doing a lot of hardware testing at your end too.
yeah. Actually, it was interesting because I didn't join Marvel as an employee. I joined Marvel Semiconductors as a contractor,
Yeah,
and
that's what my role was in the first company
yeah,
contract.
and it actually worked out better for me because I was able to do a lot of things without a lot of red tape because I
Yeah.
was not an employee. Financially, it wasn't that great. I would have made more money if I was an employee, but yeah, it gave me a lot of freedom, and I actually used that freedom a lot. So, for example, using a Marvel chip, I created a dev board with a lot
Wow.
of help from the Marvel colleagues that I had. So it was called Makerville Knit.
Yep.
And one of the things that I was actually working on at Marvel was open sourcing some of their stack. So Marvel is a typical traditional company and didn't believe in open source. But
True.
there was this small group of people, like my boss and his boss, who are basically renegades. They said that because they knew the importance of open source, even if Marvel knew.
You found your
So
tribe there.
yeah, so yeah, I actually ended up working with them for 4 years.
Wow.
So that was a pretty good team. But yeah, like that particular team was focused on open source. Like they really understood its importance. They understood the importance of community. They understood the importance of low cost hardware so that people can make stuff. And that's what I was focused on at Marvel Semiconductors. So that went on for 2 years, but then there was some company level changes that happened at Marvel.
So
So
what exactly were you doing when you were at Marvel and the company you mentioned before that?
uh, yeah, so the company I mentioned first, like the first year of my professional life, I was working on the crowdfunding campaign and doing all the software, doing all the marketing and manufacturing primarily. So manufacturing was the main part that I did. Other than that, anything related to marketing was also something that I was heavily involved in.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, that was like the first year, and then at Marvel, I was taking their existing SDK, which was not open source, and then documenting it and putting bits of that SDK on GitHub, trying to build a community around it. And then I also did some more manufacturing by manufacturing a low cost development board. So it was like a $15 development board. And this is
That
around the time
sounds
when
that sounds very much like being an
ESP32.
evangelist.
Yeah. So yeah, that could be my,
Yeah.
yeah, you could call it that.
Like building a community around it, having
Yeah.
people to use those chips and build something
Yeah.
product out of it, and then also marketing and outreach and open sourcing things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a
Cool.
developer evangelist kind of a role, but I was actually doing some coding and some hardware design as well. So
Wow.
it wasn't purely marketing. It was a bit of both. And yeah, like community building and everything comes under that.
Yeah, and then Espressif came to India, and I think you were
Yes.
joined that in the initial days. Maybe one
Yeah.
of the reason is it started the operations in your city.
Yeah. So it's actually a funny story because it was a lot of the people from the team at Marvel were the first few people in SPSF India.
Wow,
And
interesting.
Espressif really so basically Marvel was trying to disinvest from IoT,
Okay.
so they wanted to get out of that business
Hmm.
because they weren't seeing growth, or there were some financial institutions which invested in Marvel which had a different view of IoT. So Marvel wasn't interested in investing in IoT
That happened a lot actually
at
that
that.
time. I remember Intel was on a similar lines.
Exactly. So around that time, Marvel was like, if we don't get this, we maybe want to stop investing in this. And if you are
Hmm.
working on a team that, and then your CEO says that, that's not very nice to
That's a
hear.
very nice picture.
Yeah. So a lot of people left during that time from Marvel. Some went to Qualcomm, somewhere else, and some of them went to Espressif
Hmm.
because they didn't want to. Because these guys really believed in the future of IoT. They believed that low cost Wi-Fi microcontrollers are amazing in the smart home space, for
Totally
example.
revolutionized the
Yeah,
$1 Wi-Fi chip.
exactly. And then this vision was the same vision that Espressif folks had. But Espressif is a very different company compared to Marvel because Espressif used to be a startup based out of China. And
Hmm.
Marvel was this huge publicly listed company based out of
Semiconductor
California.
conglomerate.
Yeah. So, but the vision that this small team in Marvel and the team in Espressif had was the same. So it was a very easy transition for me to go from Marvel to Espressif. And there I worked for 2 years. So I was working on application frameworks there. There was not a
Hmm.
lot of hardware that I did. I was mostly involved in programming there. There was not a lot of. I did organize meetups. I did do conferences and stuff. So I was still doing some
Was it the
evangelism.
part of job description or you did it just for the love
No,
of the
that wasn't
expressive?
part of my that wasn't part of my job description. But I used to like
Wow.
doing that, so I did that. So one of the things that my managers at Espressif and Marvel used to say was, he still says that is like responsibility at work is not given, it's taken.
Wow.
So that means that if you think that your team needs a developer evangelist, you have to be one.
Hmm.
You can't
Interesting.
say that give me that responsibility. You have to organize a conference, you have to organize a meetup, and then get it to a point where nobody else is a better match
Wow.
for doing that. So yeah, responsibility has to be taken. Nobody gives you responsibility. uh, so that's actually kind of what happened there as well, because yeah, my managers there were pretty amazing people, and they encourage this kind of things. So
Right.
apart from my work, I was doing these things, and I love doing those things. So that went on for 2 years, and then I was kind of looking for a change. I was a little burnt out, so
And I think
I
especially
left.
from the very initial especially from the very initial days were quite spearheading the hardware open source kind of thing, that open
Yeah,
sourcing all the
yeah,
frameworks. They were doing SDKs and making it very usable for people, like
yeah,
Arduino compatibility, things like that. So quite impressive to
yeah. So the
see a
CEO of
startup from
Espresso is
China.
actually, yeah. So CEO of Espresso is actually pretty cool. So what he did was he had a team internally working on these things, and then he made this available for so cheap that people all over the world were just taking it and working on it.
Yeah.
Even if there was a language barrier between Espresso, the company, and people all around the world, people were just working on it. They translated the data sheet from Chinese to English on Hackaday, if I remember correctly,
Yeah.
and a bunch of other things like that. So what happened was a bunch of developers from around the world built built open source tools for Espresso chips.
Wow.
And then Espresso was like, hey, do you want to just work for us? And they hired those people, which is a good
Mm.
lesson. That there's a good lesson in here that sometimes, the things that you do as a side project or a hobby
Yeah.
have the potential of full-time employment, and that's what happened with a lot of my
I
colleagues
can
at
totally relate
Espresso.
that. So the company I joined actually acquired this company called Monta Vista, which has a really good presence in automotive embedded
Right.
Linux. And Monta Vista used to do this. So they go to the Linux tree every now and then, and they see top
Yeah.
contributions from the subsystem
Yeah.
they're looking for. So, for example, if they're looking someone from the video domain, they'll see
Yeah.
who is contributing a lot, and then they'll roll out an offer. And just sitting remote, the top contributors are doing job for you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's actually one of the good things about open source is it's
Yeah,
pretty easy to look at the Git history and say, okay, maybe we should hire this guy. And that's what
absolutely.
happened with Espresso, right? Espresso hired like some of the initial people who are still at Espresso and at senior positions, who are people who build tools for Espresso's devices. And they
Wow.
didn't have to build those tools. They were not paid to build those tools, but they just built them because they wanted to scratch this itch that they had. Uh, and that worked out pretty great for them and for Espresso.
Very
So
interesting.
yeah, uh, so yeah, Espresso was pretty awesome. Like in that way, like they believe in open source a lot. They have done a lot of radical things. For example, they decided not to use an ARM core, uh,
Hmm.
and that must have been painful initially. It sometimes still is, but I think that's one of the things that distinguishes them from the rest
That
of the
is
pack.
it, Tensilica, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have different licensing arrangements as compared to Nordic and ST, for example, right?
Hmm.
Because they use ARM cores. So yeah, those are the kind of things that they did. Again, this is like a business discussion now, but yeah, like technically, Espressive has been pretty good. They've pushed the right buttons, and they're moving pretty fast, and that's
Right.
good because there's loads of work to be done, and they kind of are in a good direction.
Yeah, like that's a good thing. I totally adore about you that you are still in touch with your previous employers and companies, and you're still promoting their product because you actually worked in the companies that you believed in and in their
Yeah,
mission. So
yeah.
yeah,
So
it's good to see.
yeah, I've been lucky that way because all of my, I mean, some part of it is luck, some part of it is intentional, but I've been able to stay in the same field. Right.
Yeah,
I didn't have to go from working in a bank to working for a phone operator or to working in a services company. Right. I was able to go from working in hardware to working on more hardware to working on more hardware to working on more hardware,
yeah.
and it was all internet connected hardware, and it was it's not the same, but a lot of lessons carry forward. So yeah, that way it's been good because then it's pretty easy to chat with your former colleagues or
Yeah. And I think
understand what
all
they're
of these
working on.
companies has a good open source presence, so the community
Yeah,
part is always there. Whether it's
yeah,
Marvel, which you started the open source thing, whether it's
yeah,
Espressive and now Balina.
yeah, yeah. So that's actually a snowball effect, right?
Right.
You start doing open source, someone looks at your open source work, hires you to do more open source work. Then your open source work is more. And now somebody else is going to look at your open source work and be like, okay, we should hire this guy to do more open source work. So it's yeah, it's a vicious circle, and that's
Yeah.
actually great.
So coming
Uh,
back to the open source part, I believe you were doing a lot of open source thing for the Beagle board community, and you were part
I
of the
wouldn't say I was
GSOC.
doing a lot. I was doing some.
Yeah,
Yeah, there were definitely better
but you
examples of
definitely
them.
picked it up during your university days because you were
Yeah,
part of the
yeah,
GSOC program. From
yeah,
where I checked the contributions
yeah,
for
yeah,
the
yeah,
Beagle board Black.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So this was back in 2013. I think this was my second year, towards the end of my second year.
So
And
would you
so we
like to
used to.
like talk about what motivated you, and did you actually had something you thought I could contribute to Beagleboard? Because a lot of people actually have a GSOC just for the sake of GSOC, but
Right,
definitely
right.
there are very less hardware companies for the GSOC, and
Yeah,
Beagleboard being one of them. So
yeah.
what was your motivation back then?
Uh, I had some pretty good seniors who told me about GSOC. So
Hmm.
Vipul was one of my seniors from college. He was, I think, 2 years older than me. And there was another called Prathamesh. So these were people that I kind of looked up to because I was also doing attending a lot of meetups and conferences when I was in college. Uh, because I wasn't simply happy with the conditions that were there in my college, so I was looking for good learning outside of college, and that's where I learned about these things. And then these guys kind of encouraged us to do these things as well.
Awesome.
And then I was inkling. So after my first internship, I was hoping to work on hardware. So I actually didn't get into GSOC the first time I applied. That was also for a hardware project. Uh, I learned some good things about people and technology during that application process. But then the next time I applied to Beagleboard Foundation, and I got in. And like you said, they're into a lot of hardware companies. And I definitely wanted to work in hardware because I'd done an internship before that, like I said, which made me realize that okay, I like doing this a lot. So I definitely wanted to work in hardware, and then Beagleboard was a very obvious candidate because before that,
Hmm.
at one of my internships, I used a Raspberry Pi, so I was familiar with single board computers,
Yeah.
uh, and so Beagleboard was like a familiar name.
Regarding the Beagleboard Foundation, so what was your overall experience with the GSOC part, and do you think that that was the point where you got to learn a lot about open source and continue with that cult and still doing that to this day?
Yeah, Beagleboard foundations were pretty awesome. Like it was my first time working with an international uh, group, basically. Uh, was my first remote work,
Hmm.
and yeah, they have pretty high standards. The mentors are pretty good.
Also, what was your project? If you just like to touch upon
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So I worked on something called user space Arduino, which meant that you could run Arduino code on single board computers.
Wow,
So you could just use the Arduino IDE and whatever, and just have the same sketch compiled for a BeagleBone Black and then run. So
that's
there were two
interesting.
of us working on it. I worked on, I think, GPIO, PWM, and something else. Is it analog or something like that? So he added, and there was Parav, another student who worked on I2C and SPI or something like that. So the idea was, to make it easy for someone who's familiar with Arduino to program a BeagleBone Black.
Right. So I
So yeah,
think I don't know for some weird odd reason BeagleBone Black is like really close to my heart. Like I know Raspberry Pi has a really big
yeah.
community, but BeagleBoard is not able to get that much people in the
Uh,
community and be big like Raspberry Pi. But for some weird reason, the board is so
I think
aesthetically cute and
yeah, yeah.
everything with the community they're doing. It's amazing.
So one of the examples that I could give is talking about Indian cars. There's Creta and there is Thar. So if you
Hmm.
are an off-roader, you're going to love the Thar. But whatever Thar does, it's never going to be able to sell as many Cretas, like as
That's a
many
great
cars as
analogy.
Creta does. Right? So,
That's
but
a great
it's
analogy.
not that Creta is a bad car. I actually have one, but it's a great car, but it solves a very different purpose.
True.
Uh, but the BeagleBone Black is like engineer's delight, right? If you
Hmm.
really care about fast peripherals, if you really care about open source, it's beautiful. Uh, and I don't think that BeagleBoard Foundation also cares about becoming the next Raspberry Pi Foundation or something like that.
That's actually true. So I've been talking to Jason for some time now, and they do have a vision for the community with the new RISC-V chips and all, but they never are really into competing with Raspberry Pis and things like that.
Yeah,
Very different vision.
because it's simple, right? Like if you want to put Raspberry Pi inside of a product, you can't buy the chip.
Hmm.
You have to either buy a Raspberry Pi and then pray that the SD card doesn't die on you,
Yeah.
or then you buy a compute module and
Compute
then
module.
incorporate it in your product, which is what we do at Balena. We build a compute module carrier board, and that's a good trade-off. But there's a lot of use cases where it makes sense to make your own product,
Yeah.
and for that you need a good open source design if you don't want to invest a lot of time, and you need a good community, and you could need a good software stack. You need your Linux bits upstreamed into the kernel, so you don't have to maintain them a lot, and a bunch of other things. And all of these tick boxes are ticked by the BeagleBoard
And I
Foundation.
really think the Cetera processor has still a lot of potential packed into it, especially
Yeah,
the PRUs and
yeah,
the ADCs. And also, this
yeah,
Octavia chip just has this BeagleBone
yeah. The
on
SIP, yeah,
silicon.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's someone
That's
who's
pretty
looking
good.
to not get into so much of
Yeah,
PCB designing can actually go for this BGA chip and
yeah,
quite easy.
yeah. So that's the thing, right? If you think about the number of products that probably have a BeagleBone Black inside of them, it might be more than the Raspberry Pi Foundation, or it might be a
Interesting.
huge number. Like, it might not be the same number as the number of BeagleBone Blacks sold. It will be a lot more because people incorporate that design in their own products. They don't have to make it open source; they just ship the product,
Right.
right? So it's really hard to find out how many BeagleBone Blacks have been sold as compared to how many Raspberry Pis have been sold,
Right.
right? Like you don't need to be a licensed license, like you don't need to take a license from the Raspberry Pi, like the BeagleBoard Foundation, to actually make your own BeagleBone Blacks. You could just make one.
Right.
You won't
So,
be able to call it a BeagleBone Black for trademark reasons,
hmm,
but with Raspberry Pi, you have to buy it from them. There's no like licensed Raspberry Pi manufacturers.
true. Very true.
So it's like it's a yeah. I think it's comparing apples to oranges a little.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, BeagleBone is pretty good hardware. So once you start
Hmm,
understanding hardware, you start appreciating the BeagleBone Black a lot more. I think. But
that's
yeah, the
true.
Raspberry Pi has its own place.
Yeah, for people who
Being
don't want to reinvent the wheel and they just want to,
yeah,
bring product really quickly to the market, the compute
yeah,
module and now the RP 2040 chips, I think it's
yeah,
gonna be altogether a different game. And
yeah,
companies have realized the potential long back about this sort of approach.
yeah. I mean, it's finally what your product does, right? Like, let's say you want to build a product. which doesn't really care about fast peripherals or fast I/O, you're most likely okay with using a Raspberry Pi. If your product needs a lot of GPU work, like you need to do a lot of neural networks, so you probably going to use a Jetson. And if you care about fast I/O and open source, then you're most likely going to use BB Black. So
Very
yeah,
true.
I think all of them are they overlap with each other a little bit, but yeah, everyone has their own place. I think.
Right. So I know that when two hardware people meet and it can all together go into a different direction talking
Yeah,
about
yeah,
hardware, but I just really want to, come back and focus on
yeah,
your
yeah, yeah,
career journey. So, like fast forward to today, you have been like, you work for this startup where you had the crowdfunding campaign and more of the marketing, and then
yeah,
to open sourcing IoT stacks, and then to Expressive where you were working on the application part so people can easily use it.
yeah.
Now you work for a company called Belina, which has a really
Right.
good open source presence, and you are working
Yeah.
remotely. And you are a embedded hardware engineer, I believe. There. So what?
I think my like so designations mean very little when you work at Balena,
Haha. Yeah.
but my official designation is hardware engineer, and
Okay.
that's pretty accurate to what I do
So what
there.
exactly an what exactly an hardware engineer do, and what's your
Yeah.
day
So
to day work looks like today at Belina?
yeah. So we like I said we have two big hardware projects. One is called the HR Pro, which is the hardware version of HR, which is a small computer with a touch screen and 16 USB and 16 SD card slots
Hmm.
that you can use to mass flash devices. So that's one thing that I somewhat work for. I am not part of that team, but sometimes I help out those guys. But most of my time I spend on another project called Balena Fin, which is a
Yeah.
small carrier board for the Raspberry Pi computer. Uh, so that is used by customers in industrial environments. The Raspberry Pi is not really an industrial board.
Hmm.
It doesn't work at higher temperatures, or it doesn't have eMMC on board, and it doesn't have industrial power ranges, or a bunch of other things. So all of these things are part of the Balena film. So yeah, I'm working on that particular project. We have more plans for the future, which is where I'm currently focused on.
So when you say like working on this hardware platforms, the HR Pro and the Balena Fin, from a hardware point of view, is it like designing circuits, picking up parts, designing PCBs, and going back and forth with the manufacturing process and the lead times of these components?
Yeah, so that's not that's definitely part of what my team does, but that's not what I'm involved in on a day-to-day basis. Of course, if I have inputs about that, I do help, and it's not like I haven't helped in those parts. Sometimes there's issues with certifications that you need to help with, right? Going to a lab and testing it. Sometimes I help with that, or sometimes you have to test out new features on a smaller scale before actually implementing it. That's what we do. Or we have to figure out how. So you start with a product vision, and then you come back to the technical details. You don't
Hmm.
start with the technical stuff and then do that. So that's what we do. We say, okay, we want the next version of the film to have this particular feature.
Right.
Okay, so how can we do that? Okay, looks like there are three ways to do this. So then we try out those three ways, figure out which is good, which is bad, and take it from there. So yeah, it's like and it's not just that. Sometimes you have customers using the existing version of your product. They come to you and say, okay, this doesn't work, or I see an issue with this. Maybe it's a hardware issue, maybe it's a software issue. So then you have to kind of figure that out as well. So yeah, we have
Yeah.
had some issues on that front as well, where you have to then kind of talk to the customer, help them figure out what's going wrong. So it's
Right.
also to some extent support, but it's mostly building the future of well enough.
I actually have the Balena Fin V1, which I was trying to find out, but I don't think it's here. It's
Yeah,
deployed somewhere, but it's
yeah,
really the Raspberry Pi on steroids. And
yeah,
I just really wish that Raspberry Pi Foundation haven't changed the compute module format. So if they
yeah.
kept it same, I would have reused this. But I'm really looking forward for the next version.
Yeah,
There we go.
so this is the Balena
All the
film. This is the
industrial,
yeah,
yeah, ports there.
yeah. It's the yeah. So you have like three or four different ways in which you can power this. You can connect two cameras to it, unlike
Yeah, that's something which I really am looking forward to do,
yeah.
that two camera
Plus,
projects.
yeah. Plus, it's got a coprocessor on board, which can be used to
Mm,
do so similar to the PRU, but kind of
yeah,
different because it's a completely separate
maybe
processor.
like
It's not.
waking up CPUs, things like
Yeah,
that.
you can use it to control the power to the main board. The Raspberry Pi does not come with ADCs, so if let's say your
Yeah.
application needs an ADC, then this is where you.
And
finding
also, I
those.
think it can take up to 24 volts, which is like a blessing for industrial
Yeah,
applications.
yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah, the power circuitry is different from the Raspberry Pi.
Hmm.
It's pretty broad compared to that. Plus
So,
the
like,
different
what kind
connectors
of
that we use.
yeah. So, what kind of like skill sets is if someone is looking to make career in a similar domain, let's say like hardware engineering, what kind of skill set should one be focusing on? Is it like knowledge of simulation? Because I know a lot of companies do that before going into the production. And is it knowledge of able to choose right parts for your project and designing the
Right.
circuits and then PCB designing things like that?
Uh, yeah, it's a bit of everything. So if you want to be a hardware engineer, you have to know some level of software because it's
Hmm.
unavoidable now. It's not that you can just start up an EDA tool or you can start a CAD tool and just do your work and go home. There's a lot more programmability that's coming to EDA. There's a lot more programmability that's coming to CAD CAM. It's already there to a lot of extent, but it's happening more and more. So you definitely have to be familiar with programming to a good
Hmm.
extent, even if you want
Interesting.
to be a hardware engineer. Because if you're thinking about that now, you have to think about what's going to happen in the next 10 years, and that's a
Hmm.
given. There's going to be a lot more software that we see in EDA. There's going to be a lot more software that we see in CAD and CAM.
Yeah, like a lot of scripting you can do to automate
Yeah,
some processes.
yeah. Like people are also working on new file formats and stuff, right? So
Hmm.
these things are also bound to happen in our lifetime, uh, like career lifetime. So yeah, definitely you should be proficient in programming, I'd say. And it really helps. For example, just the other week, I needed to find out uh, how many of a particular catalog were I2C devices. So
Hmm.
I wrote a small web scrapper to get all of them in an Excel sheet, and then I was able to easily sort them. So now
Wow.
this is not related to my programming part of the work. This is related to my hardware engineering part of the
But this makes the job a
work.
lot easier.
So this makes a job a lot easier. This helps me and my colleagues make better decisions because unless you have good data, you're not going to make
Uh,
better decisions. So definitely,
and you
programming
use,
is
yeah.
yeah. So definitely, programming is something that you should know at all costs. Uh, Other than that, you should be very hands-on. You should be able to debug circuits. That comes with a lot of experience. So what you have to do is not get too attached to a particular project. You shouldn't be. I'm going
Hmm.
to
Very,
take
very
this
great
project,
advice.
yeah, and then I'm going to build $1 billion startup out of it. You shouldn't think of those things. I would say in the initial part of your career, you want to learn as much as possible, and that comes with a lot of breadth. So trying different projects, moving on, learning something, moving on. So you shouldn't get stuck up. You should want to move on to the next thing, learn something new. So you should definitely do that. uh, Manufacturing is something that, to do that, it's a pretty capital intensive thing. uh, the first time I did it using somebody else's money. The second time I did it was when I used my own money to a lot of extent. And yeah, it was both, like it was pretty enlightening that way, uh, because that's a very different skill set. It involves a lot of different things. It is also pretty technical, but yeah, that's also something that you have to do by learning. You can't read about manufacturing and then get
True.
good at manufacturing. You have to do manufacturing to do, like, to be good at manufacturing.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. So, what kind of tools like you use in your daily life to, get the job done?
yeah, I mean, anything related to schematic and PCBs. Usually, I take a look at schematic and PCBs more than contribute to them. At least in my current role, that wasn't the
Hmm.
case in my previous roles. Right now, it's more of reviewing stuff. So I should be able to, if someone says take a look at the schematic, I should be able to actually intelligently take a look at the schematic.
Hmm.
If someone says we need to test this feature, I should be able to wire it up, program the Linux side of things, program a
Hmm.
microcontroller,
Wow.
and
And
come to
that
a
comes with a lot
conclusion.
of experience which you have with your previous employers and other
Yeah.
projects.
So breaking down a task into what needs to be done is kind of important, because that doesn't always come with explicit steps. You have to
Yeah.
figure those out. Certification is another thing that you have to do to learn. That's something that I kind of think everyone should do to some extent in their career, because it's a very different ball game, and
Hmm.
it has the ability to make or break a project. So
Absolutely.
certification is definitely something that we should all be somewhat familiar with, and if there's an opportunity in your company to dabble with it, you should definitely take it.
Right.
Same with manufacturing. If you really participated in some
Yeah,
small
and it's quite
amount.
frustrating as well. So in my case,
Yeah.
I there is this I work for automotive, right? So we used
Right.
to have a lot of certification because
Of
when
course.
Linux is controlling aspects of your car, you need to make sure that
Yeah.
it's able to do it in a safe manner, and
Yeah.
especially in EU and the US region, a lot of certifications comes into the place. So there's this good project called Elisa project, which is like making Linux kernel sort of thing. Safe for hardware, safe for automotive and healthcare part. And I can
Uh-huh.
definitely tell you it's a lot frustrating when it comes to getting certificates right, and
Yeah.
you need to compromise on so many things. You need to give up
Yeah.
on features, things like that. But it's altogether a different ball game, and I totally agree.
Yeah.
If you get a chance, you should definitely get involved with these things because it teaches a lot, and you can also
Yeah.
use it back if you someday decide to do some sort of production and build your own company around hardware and get certificates because
Yeah.
sooner or later you have to get into that. Talking about having a sort of company, I won't say like a full company, but you do some sort of installations, hardware installations for
Yeah.
Makerville. That's how it started. It's now a good community of a lot of amazing people. And you
Yeah.
also had this crowdfunding campaign. So like, why don't you share some little experience
Yeah.
about this with the crowdfunding? Because when you did, I don't see much of the crowdfunding campaign, and especially in the hardware coming from India. So what
Right.
was your experience? How many sleepless nights you had, and how you were able to get the goal and ship the
Yeah.
products
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
you promised?
Yeah, so I'll answer your first question, I think, which was about
The Makerville installations.
yeah, Makerville art installation. So the art installations thing started out because of a friend. He really wanted to build a piano stairs. That's what we
Hmm.
did when I was working in my first company. We did that for a mall, and then that scratched that itch to some extent. But then we realized that we need a lot more itch guard because we had a lot more itches now. So
Yeah.
we did a bunch of installations. I think we might have done over a dozen installations in the last 5 years, 6 years, probably more.
Wow.
Actually, yeah, we might have done around 15 or so installations.
And I still do
And
that.
yeah, I still do that. Those are mostly weekend projects.
Hmm.
There is some money involved, but I don't. It's like nowhere near close to what I make from my day job. So it's something that I do to just scratch an itch, and it's something that I do to learn new skills and practice those skills. Because it's not always possible for the company to offer you a broad range of work. Sometimes you have to be very focused on what you're doing, but then at least initially in your career, you should be also focused on skill development a lot.
Right.
Uh, so this kind of enables me to do that to a lot of extent. Working with electronics, soldering stuff, designing stuff, 3D printing, getting something manufactured, getting something laser cut, designing
Rapid
some
prototyping.
rapid prototyping. Yeah. So all of these things are something like things that I learned because of my interactive art installation.
Hmm.
And
Interesting.
then that also plays a part in my day job because then I can take those learnings and use them there. So yeah, that's kind of like a complementary thing that I do, and I'm still doing that. But no, yeah, I mean, it's the nature of it has changed. I focus exclusively. Initially, I used to do a lot more than the technical stuff, but in the last 3 or 4 years, I have focused exclusively on the technical bits because that's where I want to be, and then let my friends do the rest of the work. So, for example, if there's some aesthetic or design related thing that needs to happen, then I don't get involved in that anymore. But
Hmm.
earlier I used to. But yeah, the art installation stuff is, yeah, it's something that I've been doing on in the side for a lot of time now, like almost half a dozen years. And it's fun. It's nice to see, something beautiful made from bits and
Yeah.
atoms.
Absolutely. Even like the
Uh,
last newsletter of this Maker update, I saw another piano staircase. So still going hot.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We did that in I think 2014, and it was, yeah. We spent a lot of sleepless nights actually doing that. It wasn't easy. It was a lot of maintenance, but it was a lot of fun as well. We learned a lot, and yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of fun to be had, and art installations is something that I kind of like to do for that.
Did any of them give up on you during the demo?
Oh, a bunch of them, and that
Yeah.
always happens. But the thing is that you learn
Demo gods.
to, yeah, you learn to be patient. You learn to stay after hours
Resilience.
and get it working. So yeah, It's not. I wouldn't say it's been smooth, but it's been fun for sure.
Yeah, that's actually one of my friend asked. I told him that I'm going to be talking to Anuj, and if
Yeah,
you have any questions for him, so he
yeah.
was actually asking. So you should ask him like how many projects gave up on him because he ignored a resistor or a capacitor because
Oh,
just
plenty.
just to get them into life quickly.
I've been lucky enough that electronically things have been good.
Hmm.
Mechanically, things haven't always been great. I would say
Okay,
because you tend to use your art installations carefully, but other people don't do that. Uh,
that's so true.
yeah. So yeah, there have been some learnings on that front for sure.
Hmm.
uh, and things have stopped working earlier than they should have. Some things were great, some things were pretty average. But yeah, I mean, you tend to get better at these things with time.
Yeah.
So that's that for sure.
And you also had this amazing crowdfunding campaign which you managed to
Yes.
actually get through.
Yeah, we barely got it through. We we were pretty naive about some things, I would say. Some of the things that really worked for us was getting featured in a big magazine. I think at that time it was TechCrunch or something.
Wow.
Uh, that was one thing that really worked for us. The other thing that really worked for us, which was a little expensive, was going to maker fairs all around all around North America.
Hmm.
We attended 7 or 8 different maker fairs in a matter of 5 weeks.
Wow.
Uh, so me and a colleague of mine, Nishant, from that company, we went there and then we would attend some maker fairs together, or we would split up and attend two maker
Hmm.
fairs, and we would have stalls, and then we made a bunch of demos using the hardware that we built,
So
and
what
then we
was
were
what was
showing.
the motivation behind the crowdfunding, and like what exactly was the end product and the goal which you were able to ship?
Yeah, so I think we believe we wanted to raise $25,000, and we had a Arduino board which had Bluetooth on board, and
Hmm.
then Dheeraj, one of my colleagues there, built a bunch of beautiful iOS apps for that, and then we had someone else build Android apps for that, Shailendra. And then the idea was that because of Bluetooth Low Energy, it opens up a lot of things because now your phone is also involved.
Right.
So let's say you make a dice with that Arduino and you roll that dice, and then you can see it on your phone that you rolled a 5 or you rolled a 3, for
Hmm.
example. Or you have a NeoPixel connected to your phone, and then you're just controlling the colors, right? So
True.
these are the kind of different things that we built. So we had one Arduino board and we had 3 shields for it. We did the entire thing here in India. We manufactured it in Pune itself.
Wow.
The entire manufacturing happened here. We didn't go to China or anything like that. So it was Make in India before Make in India was cool. uh, and yeah, we did spend some time and money on marketing, which kind of helped us. Uh, but the idea is that one of the things that I think I would do differently is build a community before
Hmm.
building a product.
Right.
Uh, like before launching something, you should have people interested in it. So, for example, if you are building something for musicians, build a community for musicians, and then build the tool for musicians.
Yeah. Know their
Uh,
problems and solve them.
yeah, because otherwise you tend to work in a vacuum many times. You think that this needs to be done, but it maybe not. It's yeah, it's dicey. So it's difficult to estimate how
Hmm.
popular something is going to be.
So I
And
think
with
it's about
crowdfunding,
a
you need
few
to
years
know
back,
that.
and even today, like people face a lot of challenges when it comes to getting a hardware product shipped from entirely from India. Even though Make
Yeah,
in India and things like that, and a lot of more companies have come to India since then. You did the campaign. So what was your
yeah.
challenges back then?
Our challenge back then was getting it noticed. Primarily, we spent
Hmm.
some time doing that, and we were successful. But I don't think we were overwhelmingly successful, which is what you need when you're doing a Kickstarter campaign, or
Right.
when you're doing a crowdfunding campaign. You need to be viral, and becoming viral is a hard problem to solve. It's there's
True.
no fixed answer. So the campaigns that have become viral are like it's hard to figure out why they become viral.
I
But
think
those are the
somewhat
campaigns that
similar
tend to,
around the Bluetooth and the Arduino thing could be a Blue Pill one. I remember.
yeah. There's a blue pill one. Yeah, I mean, there's good examples. There's bad example. I know some folks in Mumbai were trying to do a 7 segment display, an array of 7 segment displays.
Mhm.
I don't think those guys were successful then. There were smaller campaigns, so you could. That's one way to start it. Is start with a very small campaign, and then build a fan following of your products.
Which I see with the Bolt IoT. If you have know that they had a
Yeah, I've heard of Bolt
lot of
IoT.
funds for the marketing and collaboration part, and
Yeah,
that ended up helping the campaign.
yeah. Uh, but yeah, I mean, sometimes when you make something people like, and then you make another thing, people tend to give you money quite easily.
True.
So that actually works out pretty well. So it's not necessary that you do the hardest thing first. You do the thing that helps people out, makes a good name for you, and then you build on top of that good foundation.
Yeah,
Because at the end of the day, happiest customers are the best marketing people that you can have. You
true.
can spend money on journalists and getting pieces published about you, and you can spend money on going to maker fairs like we did, and a bunch of other things. You can do conference talks and whatnot. But finally, what works the best is when you have customers talking about you when they're not paid to.
You still can't beat mouth to mouth marketing.
Yeah, it's simply the best, and that's what you should aim for. Uh,
So, like when you do a campaign like this, I know like you do everything by yourself because small team and need to
yeah,
cut on the shot. But what exactly was your role back then? Like if you divided
yeah.
it,
So my role was manufacturing. That was one of my primary responsibilities.
hmm.
Uh, so I
So
was
that
completely
must have
involved.
involved getting quotes and back and forth communication with different manufacturers, companies, and
Yeah,
taking the lead time from the chip manufacturers and things like that.
yeah, and like it also involves getting prototypes done, making
Hmm.
sure they're up to spec, making sure the color is right, the thickness is right, it fits in a particular case that you want, all of those things. And then you have to do those iteratively. You have to work
Hmm.
on something and then make it work fine, then go to the next step while keeping that old thing working fine. So
Interesting.
typically, I wish we'd done this better, but what you usually do is you start with two prototypes. One is a looks alike and the other is a works alike.
Hmm.
And then finally, at the end, both of them have to merge. So your looks alike prototype has to become your works alike prototype. Uh, but initially, they can be separate so that you can have two separate teams working on them together. Uh, and this is something that you also have to do along with your manufacturer. Uh, Plus, the actual manufacturing process is pretty complicated in itself. You have to have all the parts ready. You have to have your slot booked. You can't show up on that day with something missing because otherwise the manufacture is not going to happen.
You need
You
to
need
make
to
sure
have a
that the part is available for at least few years down the line.
right. You have to make sure that you're using good parts, right? Plus, you have to make sure that you have a quick way of figuring out if the manufacturing was successful. Otherwise, you
Hmm.
have to stop the process, make sure that that gets fixed, and then continue manufacturing. So you have to have a good testing jig. So we
Right.
spend some time and energy building the testing jig as well. So all of these things have to be in place. Plus, then you have to think about boxes. Then you have to think about uh, shipping. So you have to find the right box size
The
because
logistics part.
the logistics part. Plus, you have to worry about things like the barcode that goes on the box because
Hmm.
some places need it. Right? You have
Yes.
to think about how much tax people need to pay, how much tax you need to
Like, these
pay.
are the things that you don't even think when you start
Exactly.
with the idea that serial
Yeah.
number is supposed to be there and
Yeah.
barcodes
See,
and custom things. But like with the
plus,
embedded part, there's also another complication that software needs to be there, libraries needs to be there, a lot of examples needs to be there. People should know
exactly.
what are the possibilities they can make with that. So that
Yeah.
altogether a different game.
Yeah. So yeah. So I'm working on all of these things like the box and the
And
manufacturing,
did you get
making
some sort
sure
of
that
like mentorships? Like I know you have been involved in communities, so that must have really come handy.
I was fortunate enough to work with great colleagues. The manufacturers that I worked with were also very welcoming. Uh, they kind of realized that we are not professionals at this, and they kind of helped us along the way. So that
Wow.
was nice for sure. So one thing that's important is you talk to a manufacturer who's not too big for you and who's not too small for you, who's the right size for you.
Hmm. Like they
If
can
it's too
give
small,
you attention when you need
exactly,
it.
yeah. If it's too small for you, he's going to overpromise and underdeliver. If he's too big for you, he doesn't care about it.
Great takeaway.
Yeah. I think this is one of Bunny's things that he keeps on
Hmm.
saying. I think I read this in the book and stayed. But yeah, we got lucky with that, and we had someone who was okay with our size and really helped us along the way.
So, like, if someone is planning to launch some sort of embedded product in Indian market, totally make in India, doing some sort of crowdfunding campaign, what would be like few advices that you would give in today's time?
Build a community, build a lot of integrations. So, like I said, people talking about your product is the best marketing that you can have. The second best marketing you can have is when you have integrations with existing products that are popular. So, let's say I'm building something and then it also works with Edge Impulse,
Hmm.
or it also works with Balena, for example,
And on
right?
the hardware side, like what Particle did with the Adafruit Huza form factor, so all the Adafruit shields are already compatible with that.
Exactly. So they integrated with that form factor, and then they had this huge library ready made.
Hmm.
Or let's say you're launching a single board computer, and then you add Balena support for it before you launch. And now the Balena folks are going to post about it on their newsletter and on their Twitter handle and
So you
everywhere.
get free publicity.
You get free publicity, and now the Balena community knows about you and your community, right? So integrations is actually very important. It's kind of underlooked, but unless you have probably half a dozen integrations done, you shouldn't probably launch a product.
And I think these
Is what I
companies
would say.
also come to your help and rescue because they want this product to be
Exactly.
successful because then it will
Exactly.
grow their ecosystem.
Yeah. Everyone likes to like, even they understand the importance of community because they
Yeah.
see the benefits of that every day. So and like I said, like when we started this session, you just have to ask, right?
Hmm.
You just go and ask them.
Like couple of really good example which I can quote is like Espressive recently did, like if you are building a product around their ESP32 series, then they can actually review your schematics and PCB
Schematics.
designs. And this
Yeah.
microchip for makers is like sending free samples is already there,
Yeah.
but apart from
Yeah.
that, they are bringing you on the shows and talk about your
Yeah.
products and
Yeah.
giving you
Yeah.
expert advice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Like people want to help you. You just have to ask them in the right way, and be open to whatever suggestions they give or whatever. Like
yeah.
you have to, yeah, like you have to have a solid destination, but how you go there, you should be open to that. Like you should be able to take a left or right, but still end up at your destination.
So build a community, care about your end customer, and don't afraid to ask for help.
Yeah. Work, yeah, integrations, like
Yeah,
work
and
on
integrations
integration.
with
Yeah,
existing products.
integrations. Yeah.
Awesome.
And do very, very, very good customer support.
Hmm. Very
Like
great point.
insanely good customer support. That's something that I realized at Palena actually, where Balena, the CEO and the team and everyone, is very focused on doing a good job at supporting customers.
Yeah, I remember people mentioning that everyone, no matter of their role, has to be involved in the customer support. So that gives you direct,
Yeah, I
what your
mean,
customer is really looking for.
my company's COO, which is like the second from the top or whatever position you want to call. Like I said, designations don't matter, but if you look at it from outside, even she is doing support.
Wow.
Like yeah, there's no like very few exceptions to that rule, and everyone kind of looks forward to it. And we have like an entire process for gathering feedback and using that to actually build stuff, right? Making sure that when some customer says something, we note it down. And if we start seeing more of those requests, we realize that, okay, this is a common trait, this is a pattern that
We need
emerges
to
from
get
it.
it, bump the priority of that and get
Yeah,
it done.
exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, focus on building products, don't focus on building services. So think about extensions, don't think about modifications. So when
Hmm.
you want
Interesting.
to build something, think about how it can be extended. Don't think about how it can be modified. This is true about crowdfunding and products in general, right? You want to build a board or a tool that can be extended.
I
If
really
it,
like what Balina is like doing with all this thing. So like initially they did something which no one was really talking about, like containerizing on the embedded part. And once they have this all ecosystem, the Balina cloud is there, and all kind of Etcher was already free and open source kind of thing, and people already
right,
was it's their go to. And now they are slowly like doing IoT happy hour every Friday, and the
yeah,
Balina podcast which
yeah,
recently launched. So I think it's doing a really amazing job. Like it
yeah,
already has a community with the blogs, but where now they're bringing people to show what they are doing with the
yeah,
Balina things and things like that. So,
yeah. And we now even have a Balena ambassadors program, which are not
hmm.
technically employees of Balena, but are people who are working actively on Balena related projects. We do a lot to help people who have made open source Balena applications. We
Wow.
talk to them. We ask them if there's something that we can do to help them. Anything, like
Yeah,
all
definitely.
of
I
those things.
saw this article in the last newsletter where it was a huge blog how you can contribute to Balina and their
Yeah,
in a different way, which involves from directly contributing to the source because everything is open source to like building something out of it. And if you need any support, you can
yeah,
reach out.
yeah. So yeah, yeah, that definitely helps. So like I said, you should really be. So when you're thinking about crowdfunding or building a product in general, you should be crazy about customer support. Like, you should listen to them very carefully. You should be very open minded, and yeah, I mean, you should go above and beyond to make it right for someone.
Hmm.
Like, I remember reading about this with the Stripe co-founders. So when they created their payment gateway for Stripe, they used to go and sit in people's offices and understand their code base and integrate their payment gateway into their code base.
Wow.
Right? Like, that's the level of radical involvement you need to actually build something that people really care about.
Hmm.
So you might, when you start payment gateway, think that's not part of my job. But I can tell you, after working at startups like Espresso or Balena, that that's not my job, is not something that we hear often, especially in good teams. If it's something that affects your customer, it is your job.
Hmm.
So, like, if you hear that, that's not our job or that's not our concern, be a little careful around those people. I'd say you have to be radically motivated to kind of
Yeah.
help your customers out.
Go beyond your job
Because,
description.
yeah.
Hmm. Very interesting point. So, like, you
And,
have,
that's how products get built.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, sure. Please continue.
Yeah, so that's how products are built. So, for example, the way HR, so HR is one of the most popular things that Balena makes, right?
Hmm.
And we had absolutely no need to build a flashing tool, but we realized that this is one of the biggest hurdles that our customers face. That's why we built that. If somebody else was building a great flashing tool, we wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
This was something that needed to be solved for the customers that we cared about. That's why we did it.
Yeah. Not getting any
So,
monetary benefit from it, but
yeah,
again,
it's a sink. Like, it's we put money in it, and we never get money out of HR.
hmm.
And, like, we are working on HR Pro now, which will make us money. But so far, the case has been we have put in a lot of investment in it, but it's never been like returned to it. There has been no ROI. But you shouldn't always care about it. This solves a problem that our customers have, and HR is a solution to that.
It actually like make people start talking about Balina, and then it can
Yeah,
monetize
it
on
ends
different
up
other.
it
Yeah.
ends up working as a marketing tool,
True.
but that's not the primary objective. The primary objective has to be solving a real world need for the
Like I
customer.
don't even recall any blog or anything related to Raspberry Pi which I've ever visited, which is not recommended to use HF as the flashing tool.
Yeah,
I know Raspberry Pi
yeah,
has one, but even Raspberry Pi used to recommend the same in their
yeah,
blogs when they don't
yeah,
have
yeah,
one. So yeah,
yeah,
crazy. Like you do think about your end people and their pain points and try
yeah,
to solve them. That's one good way to make community. But
yeah.
like
So
you
that's
have your
very important with
multiple
crowdfunding.
hats from hardware to software, but also customer support and marketing and things like that. So from a developer point of view, I have a question for you again, coming from that friend. So let's say if you are solving a problem that can be done both from the hardware or the software, like let's say implementing a low pass filter. So what would be
Right.
your personal approach? Like I'm not talking about
Software,
the best practices, but what would be your personal approach and
software,
why?
software.
Software, and why is
Software,
that?
because software can get better with time easily. Hardware
Exactly.
cannot get better with time
You can
easily.
save some bucks off your bomb.
Yeah, you can save some money for sure. But software is something that gets better with time. Uh,
Hmm.
I should say software gets better with time easily as compared to hardware.
That's
Uh,
true.
so you should always, if you can do something in software, it's better to do that in hardware. As in software, once you start doing something a lot of, you should put that in hardware.
Hmm.
Then it becomes so. For, the first thing should be to do it right, and to
Hmm.
do it right, you have to do a lot of iterations. Once you've reached a particular point of doing it right, then you have to make it fast. You can't make it fast and then do it right. You have to make it right and then fast. So that means you have to do it in software first and then hardware. So that's actually what happens in semiconductor companies a lot. They see their SDK is being used in a particular way, and they realize that, okay, this particular block is being used a lot. For example, accelerators for crypto,
Yeah. Yeah.
crypto operations. For example, TLS handshake. So once you realize that, okay, this is happening in software a lot, what you do is you build a separate part in your chip
Hmm.
and say that, okay, now let's take this software, which tends to happen a lot, and move it into hardware.
Hardware. Like nowadays with neural engines.
Exactly. Right.
Hmm.
So this tends to happen a lot in hardware, and this is what you should aim for. You should do something right first, and then you should do it in hardware.
Hmm. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So
And
like I
that's you. If you look around, you'll see a lot of examples for that.
hmm. True. I remember like working for this company, and the manager used to say that okay, we'll put 10 hours into the software and make the software for the pain part for us, because then we can always patch it if something needs to be updated. But if the
Yeah,
hardware goes into production, then we have to
yeah,
do reiterate everything. So totally
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah.
But I just want to touch upon the your current working infrastructure. Like I work for a similar sort of hardware company, and uh, on top of Linux and single board computers, and everyone used to say that it's not possible to do a remote job until the
Hmm.
pandemic, and nothing changed. But Balina from the day one has been a completely remote company. So
Yeah,
what were your experiences being? I think this is your first remote job, if you don't consider the GSOC part as well.
yeah,
But
yeah.
what
So
is your
GSOC was
experiences?
remote,
And
but it was an
yeah,
internship.
so, like, what are your
Balena has,
experiences and challenges when it comes to remote? I know, like,
yeah,
one definitely for sure is customs when it comes to getting the hardware, but apart from
yeah,
that, on the infrastructure point of view and getting everyone in sync with the time zones and
yeah.
delivering on top of that.
So yeah, that's something actually pretty good at Balena. Other companies are adapting to that now. Balena started in 2013 and it's been remote since then.
Hmm.
So that's 7 or 6, 7 years now that it's been remote, right? So over that period of time, a lot of tools and technologies have been built internally, which help us to be better product managers, better designers, better engineers. Uh, so one of the things that should really happen is there should be a lot of support from the company for its remote employees. Otherwise, things tend to become very tough. So that's something that's really important. The other thing that you should kind of think about is uh, you should be able to log in and log out of work mentally. So
Hmm.
the way to do it is through routines. So I have fixed routines when I get up. For example, I take my dog for a hike, or I have fixed routines in the evening, or something like that. I have fixed routines in the afternoon. So this helped me keep track of time. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult to keep a track of time if you're working from home. Uh, the other thing that's really important about working from home, especially with hardware, is you have to have a little bit of foresight and you have to order preemptively. Like you can't wait for something to be 100% finalized before you order it. Otherwise,
Hmm.
things become very slow. So you tend to order a little preemptively. Uh, the other thing is you should be aware of what things are available locally and not. That's one of the reasons why under MakerVille I created a list of stores in
Hmm.
India, because then that kind of helps me a lot. So yeah, you should be aware about your surroundings. You should be aware about ways. Like there's always, almost always, there's more than one right way of doing something. So you should be able to build that quickly and test it. The
Hmm.
other thing is you should have a library of tools that you are familiar with, and this comes with doing a lot of projects and experiments and stuff like that. But you should have, okay, I need to figure out why a particular GPI is not working. In that case, you should know what are the 3 or 4 different things that you're going to quickly try to make that happen.
No
But
worries.
yeah, you should have. So what I was saying was, you should have a library of tricks or tools or processes, mental processes that you use to debug something.
Hmm.
It's not necessary that it's a physical library. It can also be a set of physical tools, but you should have that because in when you're working remotely, it's not always possible for someone else to do that for you. So you have to be self-reliant to a lot of extent. So that should definitely help.
Yeah.
And
I
yeah,
will
I mean,
ask.
yeah,
Yeah. I will ask
you
a couple
need
of
a
questions for you, like coming back to the career talk section
yeah.
and talking about people who are actually willing to, get into the hardware part of it. So, like when I talk to different people coming from electronics and electrical background, or even from computer science with an interest of hardware like you, they have
Right.
this notion that they will not end up in a, hardware based company, whether it's IoT or semiconductor company, because let's say they're not from a very good university, IITs and tier one colleges. So, did you personally face any sort of such challenges? Number one, and if someone has landed in not a good college, like how they can, come around that notion that it's not true, and you can still be in the core field working for what you love, and that's not something that is a stereotype.
Uh, so geography is luck. So you kind of have to make your own luck when it comes to where you're based. You won't necessarily find the best opportunities because of where you're located, at least initially.
Hmm.
Once you have things are changing. More people are open to remote work, but still, uh, during the initial stages, I think it's important to be in a place where you have opportunities. Uh, so that's definitely the case. The second thing is to not be too picky. It's important to be around the right people than to have some kind of status. Uh, Picking the right thing to work is very important, and I think a lot of people don't think about it as much. Like, what do I want to work on for the next 10 or 15 years of my career, right? It's
Hmm.
something that you should really think very hard about. That's not something that people do. People tend to take the opportunity that presents itself and be happy with it. But the problem with humans in general is that we can get used to anything. We can get used to good things, we can get used to bad things, and it's important that you not get used to bad things. So if you get used to doing a job that you're not very happy with, yeah, you'll get used to it. So you have to have the ability to say no, that this is not what I want to do. But at the same time, if the right opportunity comes by, you have to take it. So you have to be at least. So there's a very good blog post called "The Days Are Long, but the Decades Are Short." So it's written by Sam Altman, and I keep reading that once a month at least. And
Hmm.
some of the things that are written there is very very important, I would say, especially. So it's written for people in their 20s. So you can be a little financially reckless in your 20s. One way to do that is to be very uh, low maintenance. You shouldn't have a lot of expenses because that tends to handicap you. So that kind of really helped because I never really had financial obligations because I didn't do typical financial investments that people do in their 20s. And that kind of helped me be lean. Like I would, so this has happened with me. I quit a job without actually having another job lined up,
Hmm.
which is very risky behavior. But for me, it was important to stay focused and have some time for myself, or not get stuck in a particular job.
Yeah, people tend to do that a lot, like getting the first job, getting paid a lot, and altogether you are fresh from the university, getting lakhs and lakhs every month, and you tend to, get into the obligations that you shouldn't, because
Yeah,
then you would be stuck in a place and you would not be as much flexible to moving when the opportunity presents itself.
yeah.
Or maybe something is
So
not working out with the current employer, and then you just have to,
yeah,
take it the hard swallow and
yeah.
just keep going with
Just
that.
go there and clock in, clock out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very very important to have your burn rate very low. Burn rate is the amount of money that you spend up
Hmm.
every month, right? Regardless of do you have a job or not. So your burn rate has to be very low. At least I would say in the first 5 or 7 years of your career, like you should be okay with being kicked out of the job today and find like you shouldn't that shouldn't wreck you financially.
Hmm.
Uh, so that's very important, I think, keeping your burn rate low because that helps you have a clear mind. Uh, so yeah, that's definitely
Then you
important,
can
I
take
think.
risky calls as well.
Yeah, and at least in the initial 10 years, I would say it's very important to take risks. Some things work, some things don't, and it's not always that you'll know all the answers before you jump into the swimming pool.
Hmm.
You have to sometimes take a leap of faith.
Right.
Uh, and yeah, I mean, you should optimize for learning and expanding your scope horizontally
Hmm.
in the initial days instead of vertically.
Yeah. So great.
That's for sure.
But what? So like talking about specifically to hardware engineering. So what are the different like domains that hardware engineer can pursue a career? It could be like circuit designing. To I am seeing these days NPI engineer, like the new part introduction, where people working in this field go out and see the new chips that are available in the market, read the data sheet, and see if it's feasible for the company to change the current with them. And PCB designing is already it's traditionally there in the hardware engineering. So what are the different fields when it comes to hardware engineering, and what are the skill sets that one should be focusing on, keeping in mind that it should be helping them for the next 10-15 years of the life that you mentioned in today's time.
One of the most important things that I kind of learned pretty early on was communication is important.
Hmm.
It's written as well as verbal, and that opens up more doors for you than you would realize. So, regardless of what domain you end up picking, communication is extremely important. Related to that, the other thing that's very important is networking. Networking is not something that you do when you are looking for a job. Networking is something that you do all the time. and even when you're not looking for a job, because part of networking is helping other people find jobs,
Yeah.
uh, right? So networking is something that you have to keep doing regardless of what domain you are in. So these are the two generic things that come to my mind when you talk about skills that people need to have, especially in the hardware world where I think we don't network or we don't communicate that much as compared to software.
Hmm.
So you should
Interesting.
definitely be focusing on that. uh, the other thing that you should be focusing on is getting exposure to a couple of different domains, because that helps you take learnings from one and apply to another, but it also helps you figure out what you like doing. So I'd recommend people doing a couple of jobs before sticking to one and focusing on it. Like I've seen that in hardware, because sometimes it's hard to get jobs in hardware that people find a job and then they stick to it. I'd say don't stick at your first job for too long, at least your first 2 or 3 jobs for too long, because then that would, instead of broadening your scope, that narrows it down, especially in hardware. Uh, because with hardware, you're pretty much always exposed to things that you are exposed to at work. With software, you could work on phone development at your day job and then come home and do web development, right? That's not always possible in hardware. So you
True.
should try and do a bunch of different jobs to figure out what you like. Uh, and yeah, I think it's important to be part of co-curricular activities. For example, if I'm working in a semiconductor company, in my free time, or if I have a supportive manager during my official time, I should be part of some open source project which is building a new chip, or which is
Hmm.
building a new spec, like the RISC-V spec. Uh, right? So you should be working on things that are not directly related to your work, like not directly related to your day job, but are slightly related to your day job.
And I think for that you need to take initiative yourself, because when you are fresh out of the university and
Yeah,
maybe you end up landing in a company that is working to a chip with a new spec of, let's say, RISC-V that you mentioned, but it not
right.
need not necessarily that they will gonna involve you unless you take initiative and tell them,
Yeah,
okay, I have some sort of interest in this. I am
yeah,
involved in RISC-V communities and similar things, and I may be able to contribute here. You
yeah,
need to burn extra hours for that, but it's gonna be worthwhile, and you end up learning a lot.
yeah. And also, one of the things that's kind of important is your first job has a very disproportionate impact on your career. If you have a very shitty job as your first job, that tends to wreck your career a lot more
Hmm.
than it's of course possible to recover from that, but you should be very picky about picking your first job, especially if it's in hardware, because it can throw your career in a very different direction, and it's sometimes hard to recover from that.
Hmm. So even if you have
So
some sort of financial obligation and you end up getting into a wrong job, then your first goal should be to get out of it as quickly as can.
yeah, it's pretty important that you find the right job, and to figure out what a good job is and what a bad job is. You should be in touch with your seniors, you should be in touch with older friends, you should be talking about these things at meetups. You should have done internships, otherwise you're not going to be able to figure out if it's a good job or a bad job. I mean, you might think that
Hmm.
okay, this is all jobs are, but it could actually be a very shitty job. So this is not going to happen unless you have heart-to-heart discussions with members from the same community and peers from the same community. So it's
Right.
very important to be part of such communities.
Right.
Like I have had people, like that was very shocking to me the first time that someone I kind of think of as a role model figure very casually mentioned how much money he makes. And for that, me, that
Hmm.
was pretty mind blowing. And he's in the same ish field that I am. And I was a little shocked. And he was like, so what? Either I'm making less and you're going to tell me that I should make more, which helps me,
Hmm. Yes.
or you realize that you're making less and
You
I'm
get
helping you by
motivated.
telling, yeah. So there's literally nothing to be lost by telling you how much money
Hmm.
I'm making. So these are kind of people that you want to be around. These are the kind of discussions that you should have in the community and peers that you have.
Absolutely.
Because that otherwise you're not going to be able to figure out if this is a good hardware job or it's a bad hardware job. So you should work for someone where you are able to talk about what you're working
Hmm.
on. So, not just monetarily, but like technically as well.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't have too many NDAs and stuff like that, which limit you from talking. Because I remember I had a colleague, a peer from my college, who joined the company and he had a bond for like 4 years or something like that. And he was never allowed to talk about his work and stuff like that. So maybe he was doing a great job, maybe he wasn't, but it's very hard to figure out for him, right? So yeah, you should definitely be
Yeah.
open to these things, and you should, yeah, it's like you should have strong opinions loosely held. That means that your opinion should be very strong, and you should have conviction when you're doing something. But when you get new information, you should change those opinions.
Hmm.
So
Open to
strong
change.
opinions
Yeah.
loosely held is actually a very good motto to live by, I think.
Yeah. Good principles to live by.
Yeah.
It's an amazing discussion, and we can definitely go for hours and
Yeah.
hours too. But I won't be taking much of your weekend time. Maybe we'll do some another session and get some more people. Maybe Siddesh or Pani.
Yeah.
Sometimes, hopefully, we'll definitely do that.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna just I ask just one question, and then we can close, and then we can go and take the rest of the weekend enjoy for ourselves.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
uh, the the actual question is, so basically, especially in the computer science domain, we are seeing a trend shift where people don't really have these days people need not really have a traditional degree in computer science. They can learn programming online and even get jobs, because companies has realized the skills matter more than the degree, and
Right.
the courses are already very outdated. So people can go to edX, Coursera and things like that and learn programming, and they are making good money. They are getting placed in good companies or opening their own organizations. But do you feel any sort of a trend change similar to this happening in the hardware world? Because the ratio would be like one good hardware course to 1,000 good software course. But if someone wants to make a career in a hardware domain, they don't have a degree or they have a completely different background. Do you see any time in the future happening that they can do it with this route, what CS people and programmers are doing, learning from courses, getting mentorships, or maybe open sourcing their projects and contributing to the source, and may not have any degree at all, and end up being into hardware engineering or similar sort of things that you
Right.
have been working on?
So I'll give you my example. I when I was in college, there were some open courseware from MIT and some stuff like that, but Coursera and Udemy and all of those things were not very popular. So I didn't put like during my college, I wasn't particularly exposed to these things. But I actually never collected my degree from my university. So the
Me
first job
neither.
I got, yeah. So the first job I got was because I knew those guys and I had already worked with them. And the second job I got was because those guys knew the people from my first job and they saw the
Hmm.
work that I'd done and they liked it. So they didn't care about my degree then. And this kept happening with me,
Hmm.
right? Where my degree or my qualifications or my certifications were never really a question. And the reason why this happened was because I had a lot of public facing projects and people were talking to me more about my projects and the work that I've done
Your portfolio
rather
speaking more
than,
for you.
yeah. So rather than, he did his degree from this reputed college. And yeah, I mean, my college was pretty decent. So I'm sure that helped as well. But most of my interviews have been about my projects more than anything,
Hmm.
right? And having a bunch of publicly visible projects, having a website, having a blog, having written down some blogs, technical stuff, your opinions, whatever, really helps. So it doesn't matter what degree you have. I don't think it matters what courses you have done. What really matters is what work we have done, and it's important to have publicly visible work. Otherwise, it's hard to get opportunities. So always optimize for projects rather than certifications for degrees.
Hmm. Like you
So
can learn from these courses, but your end goal should be to make projects and
exactly.
bring them forward to the world to see.
Yeah, I have a book recommendation. I want to do project. Tell me what to do by Shakti Kanan.
Hmm.
So Shakti is one of the guys that I really looked up to in college. He used to come and give talks in our college a couple of times. So he was kind of a role model, and he'd written this book, and it's a very good book. So it tells people in engineering colleges or in colleges in general about how to go about doing a project. So it's a very
Hmm.
good book, and if you have that question, you should definitely give that a read.
Awesome. I'm gonna put the link to the book and the blog post you mentioned a few minutes
Yeah,
back into the description for people to see.
yeah, that would be nice. Yeah.
But yeah, that is an amazing, almost 1.5 hour of our talk and discussion, and
Yeah,
lot of key takeaways
I think
for
I
the
think
young people.
we decided to do
Oh
a
my
half
God,
hour
yes, I'm so
session.
sorry about that. I
No,
know,
no, no, no. No,
but
that's actually what also happens with Makerville and the sessions that we
yeah,
do there.
yeah,
We decided that we're going to start with 30 minutes, and then at 1 hour, 5 minutes, 1 hour, 10 minutes, I'm like, guys, we need to stop now.
that happens all the
Uh,
time.
yeah, that happens all the time.
But I still feel there is like still so much to talk about. But I know that
Yeah,
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 we'll be
and that's
definitely
the
doing another
thing.
time.
Yeah, And that's what I said, right? Like you have to be open to talking to people about career and stuff, because traditional HR departments don't want you to do that.
Yeah,
Uh, there are some progressive departments, but finally it's up to us. It's our lives that we are living. And talking
absolutely.
about these things always helps. Like it's never been the case that I've spoken something and that's came back to bite me in the ass. It's never happened. It's always helped me personally.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think it's a pretty good thing to do.
yeah,
Yeah, and it good kudos to you for doing these sessions, because I'm pretty sure it might help someone out, or even talking about these
yeah.
things now helps me out to figure out my trajectory.
I'm glad it helped, but yeah, I was actually shocked when I put this video how to make a career in embedded system. It's a 30-minute long video, and till this date, it
Yeah,
has like the most watch time on my channel.
right.
Like average watch time is more than 17 minutes, which is like amazing for
Yeah,
YouTube videos
yeah,
that
yeah,
long.
yeah.
So I'm sure a lot of people are will be looking up to and learning a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I think that that's a problem with the hardware world, right? Like we don't talk about our work
Yeah.
that much as software folks do. So yeah, this is definitely a step in the right direction, I think. So good job for taking
Awesome.
this.
So we're gonna be talking a lot more in future. I'm definitely looking forward to have you again sometime, and
Yes.
maybe next time we can talk more about what's happening in the hardware world, the chip
Yeah.
shortage, RISC-V, and things like that, and maybe a couple of more
Oh
people to
man.
talk from the
Yeah.
community
Then
which
we'll
you
have
have
to
created.
schedule a day long stream, I think.
I think so, but we can definitely do that. Maybe
Yeah.
in the next Makerville conference or so,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of
We
amazing
should.
people in that community. So thanks a
Yes.
lot, Anuj, for doing this. It has been an amazing talking to you, and I hope a lot of people will get value from it. So I'm gonna
Mhm.
be taking links which you mentioned, and I'm gonna be posting into the description below. So yeah,
Yeah.
thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks.